Welcome to our last and final step in how to make a ground breaker.
What you want, what you want.
In this step, we're going to do all the final paint work on this, get him all set up and finished out and ready for Halloween. So the first part of this step, we're going to seal off everything we've put on here with either an exterior black latex paint or a flex seal or anything to protect this thing from the weather. Now you can do all this using a paintbrush and latex paint. I've done it before in the past. You can brush all through it. You have to use small paint brushes to get up underneath these crevices. However, what I'm going to use in this video is I'm going to use my airbrush. It's much easier to get into all those cracks and crevices if you don't have an airbrush. If you go out and buy an aerosol sealer of some type, like I say a lot, the Flex Seal, it's a rubberized coating. You can use it. It's a little expensive, but it's really worth it to protect your project if it's going to be out in the weather. So if you can come across or use a sprayable type of sealer, that's really your best bet, because you can get into all these nooks and crannies a lot better using a sprayable type of sealer other than just trying to brush it on. But if all you got is a brush and some latex paint, you can do it. This is the way I used to do it, and it will work. It's just much easier to use any type of an aerosol or a sprayable type of paint. So without rambling on any further, let's get at it. We'll do the first step and get this thing base coated, and then we'll move on from there to add on more color. Alright, so once we've got this base seal coat done, you're going to want to set this thing outside or put it under fan, let it dry. Best practice, let it dry for 24 hours so it gets a good, complete cure on it. That way, as we do the rest of the color painting on it, it doesn't pull any of this color or pull any of the sealer. Also, if you sealed this with something that's any other color than black, once that sealer is done and dry, then you want to come back and base coat this entire thing just like this in black. For the paint job that we're going to do, the black base is essential underneath all this stuff. It's what's really going to stay down in all these crevices and really help bring out all the textures and things that we put into it. Alright, so now that this sealer's all dried up, or your black base coat's all dried up, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to come back into these areas where we left to look like bone being exposed. And I'm going to come back in, I'm going to paint all these exposed areas right now white. So we've got the bone kind of separated out where we can see it. On the rib cage, depending on how heavy you laid your texture in here, you may not really have areas where you can highlight any of the ribs, which is fine. It'll look good. I'm going to pick some points. I don't have a lot in here. There's a few. I'm going to call this a bone back here. I'm going to call this a bone, like part of the spine. Is not really, it's not in the right spot, but I'm going to hit it anyway. And there's just a couple other little spots within the rib cage itself that I'm going to highlight. But I did have some big exposed areas in the arms that I'm going to go back in. We're going to highlight those white for bone, and up around the head. We'll get all that done, and then we're going to come back around and we're going to dry brush. We're going to do a white dry brush over this whole thing and start pulling out all the texture. Again, on this step, you can hand paint all this stuff in with a brush. That's why I used to do it all the time, so don't think you have to have an airbrush. I'm going to use an airbrush on this step just to make this faster. If you got an airbrush, take advantage of it. If you don't worry. You can do the same thing with paintbrush. Some of these small areas in here where we got some real delicate torn areas, you'll need a real fine brush to get down in there and paint those areas white. But it can be done. I used to do it that way all the time, so don't let that deter you from finishing this up. now that all the bones are highlighted white, we're going to go ahead and do a dry brush of white over this entire thing. Start pulling out all these different pinpoints and highlights and stuff. And I think we're going to maybe do a little highlight in gray first, dry brush in gray after that, and then do our wash. We'll figure that out along the way. Alright, so now that we've got this dry brush white all over, you can really see how I picked up some details. I'm going to do a gray wash and just concentrate on the skin and try to keep it away from these boned areas we got painted. When that dries up, I'm going to do a little bit of a brown wash over the top of the skin again, and just kind of bring all that down, tone it down some more, make it look a little more rotteny. And then after that all sets up, we're going to do a full black wash over everything and that'll get on the bone color, everything. So do the full thing in a black wash at the end. When I talk about a wash, what I mean is a very, very watered down paint. So this gray's got a lot of water in it. It's going to be runny and soupy. And the thing about that is, what it's just going to do is tint this whole thing a little bit gray, and you're still going to pick up that black paint and white paint from underneath of it. So that's what we want to do, just a light wash or tinting. So we got our gray wash all done. Now we need to let this set and dry up completely before we move on to our next wash, because we really just don't want to muddy it all up too bad. And so now we're just going to repeat that same process but with a brown wash. Alright, so we're almost done. We got the brown wash on it, and it's looking better. It's turning out. But I really want to bring some of these, some of this texture back out again. So I'm going to do another dry brush before we do this final black wash. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little yellow, and I'm going to use a little black, and kind of create this muddy green type of color. And we'll dry brush this all over him and just give that much more color and action and things going on for you to look at. And then once that dries up, we'll do a black wash over the top of that. Now, as I'm coming down away from the skull and coming down into the body, what I'm doing, the green adds a little more color to it, a little more texture to it, but really I'm just focusing a lot more on some of the raised areas, like around the jaw, the top part of the jaw, sides around the eyes, different things that are raised out to kind of highlight and bring those out a little bit more. Yeah, I did go around the head, but it's just to kind of flow the color in. And when I get down here to the neck, I'm doing pretty heavy on the neck because these areas are out higher than these recessed areas in here. So we've got a pretty good dry brush on here. We're going to dry brush along these raised edge lines here and these shoulders because they're really exposed. We'll bring some of the dry brush down into these other areas, but a lot lighter where it's not quite, we don't see it quite as much. And we're just going to hit this highlight to bring out these little higher areas and a few of these pieces that are off, just to kind of bring them out away from the rest of it, so it just gives that much more visual detail to it. Alright, our green dry brush is all dried up now. As you can see, we're getting a little more depth in here to the paint. I'm going to just do one final thing, call it good. We'll do a little black wash on it. And then I want to come in and paint the interior of the nose and the eyes black. Add a little more depth to that. But this should be the final step of paint, and we'll be ready for sealer. Now on this black wash step, we're going to do it a little bit different than we've done the other ones. The first thing we're going to do is lay down that black wash paint nice and heavy onto the ground breaker, and then you'll take a paper towel or a rag and you're going to lightly come back across and wipe that black wash back off. And you're lightly doing it because you just want to pull that black wash off the top high points, and you want to let that black watery paint really sink down in on all those low spots. So wipe away from the top and let it sink into the bottom, and just do it a little section at a time. Alright, so the lighting's really bad in my workspace, at least it is for video. So what I wanted to do is get this thing outside and really show you why we're doing the black wash, and how that black wash really kind of sinks back down in underneath all the little folds and all those little crevices, and really helps bring and add depth and more detail into your paint job. So just want to bring that thing outside so you guys could really see how you're wiping away from the top, how that black wash settles into all those cracks and crevices and just adds just that much more depth to the paint job itself. Alright, so here it is. The ground breaker's all done, all painted up, ready to go. Wait, I gotta stop right there. It's not done and ready to go out in your yard yet at this point. Yes, our paint is all done, our detail is all done, and all that's ready to go. But the one final thing you must do if you're going to set this thing outside and let it get any kind of weather on it, if you're going to let it get any kind of water or anything else, you must seal this one final time. So what I'm going to use and what I'm going to do on this is a spar urethane. So a good spar urethane, I'm going to spray it on with my airbrush. You can paint it on. If you're going to paint it on with a brush, take it outside, be super sloppy with it. Let it really saturate and get into all of these nooks and crannies that are in here. You really want, I cannot emphasize enough, you really have got to seal this and do everything you can to keep the water out of it. So do a spar urethane on it, let that dry up, and when that dries up, it's going to be glossy, real glossy. If you like the way it looks glossy, great, leave it that way. If not, and you want to get back to this matted look, you can go out and buy yourself, Rust-Oleum makes a clear matte finish spray paint. And other brands do as well. So you can buy a clear matte spray paint and come back over and lightly hit it with the matte spray paint, and it will get it back down to this dulled out look. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the spar urethane on it, allow that to dry 3 or 4 days, make sure it's completely cured, and then I'm going to come back over it with a matte clear spray paint and bring it back down to this dulled out look. I think that looks better for something dead. As well, guys, I really want you to know, yes, we have taken all kinds of precautions to seal this, from using wood glue or paste because it is water resistant. Your Type Bond 2, we sealed that first layer before we put this other layer on, and then now once again we're going to go back and put a spar urethane on it. But I'm not going to tell you that this thing is 100% waterproof. I can't. We've put on so many layers with so much detail, and there's so many spots that even using a sprayer you can't get back in there. And if you're in a hard downpour rain, water travels and it will get through and it'll go in different places. I'm not saying that this thing won't make it through that rain and last, but it probably will. I'm going to put mine to the test, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that if you leave this thing out in the rain and just let it get soaked and poured on for 3 or 4 days, that it's going to be perfect. I cannot guarantee you that. We just have too much going on and too many open holes. So seal it as good as you can. Put as much urethane on it as you can. A little bit of rain isn't going to hurt it. You go grab it and get it back out of the yard, or even it can set through a sprinkle or two. I'm going to set this one out for 30 days. So after Halloween, I'll let all you guys know how it held up. I'm going to let it go through the rain. But just if you want to take an extra precaution, make sure all your hard-earned, make sure all your hard work doesn't go to waste. Just keep that in mind. If you know you're going to have some severe weather and a lot of rain, you may go grab this guy, pull him out of the yard, and set him on your porch or back in the garage. I mean, he's going to be easy to move. He's all on the base. Just grab him, pick him up, and go put him away. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you're able to make something cool you really like and you can enjoy for Halloween. And until next time, keep making something from nothing.
What you want, what you want.